Well, we have been in a series we called Good Ground. I believe this is part 5. Let's look at Mark 4, verse 1. Mark 4, verse 1. It says, "And again, this Jesus, he began to teach by the sea, and a great multitude was gathered to him, so that he got into a boat and sat in it on the sea, and the whole multitude was on the land facing the sea. Then he taught them many things by parables, and said to them in his teaching, Listen, behold, a sower went out to sow, and it happened as he sowed, that some seed fell by the wayside, and the birds of the air came and devoured it. Some fell on stony ground, where it did not have much earth, and immediately sprang up. It sprang up because it had no depth of earth. But when the sun was up, it was scorched, and because it had no root, it withered away. And some seed fell on thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it, and yielded no crop. But other seed fell on good ground, and yielded a crop that sprang up, increased, and produced, some 30-fold, some 60, and some 100. And he said to them, He who has ears to hear, let him hear." So Jesus is speaking this parable. He's talking about a sower that went out sowing seed, and he gives illustration of that seed landing on different types of soil, and then there were different results of that seed springing up. And now he's going to give, these verses we're about to read, he's going to say, what did that mean? What was he illustrating? In verse 13, it says, "And he said to them, do you not understand this parable? How then will you understand all parables? The sower sows the word, and these are the ones by the wayside where the word is sown. When they hear, Satan comes immediately and takes away the word that was sown in their hearts. These likewise are the ones sown on stony ground, who when they hear the word immediately receive it with gladness, and they have no root in themselves, and so endure only for a time. Afterward, when tribulation or persecution arises for the word's sake, immediately they stumble. Now these are the ones sown among thorns. They are the ones who hear the word, and the cares of this world, and the deceitfulness of riches, and the desires for other things entering in, choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. But these are the ones sown on good ground, those who hear the word, accept it, and bear fruit, some 30-fold, some 60, and some 100. So the final, he gives these different illustrations, different people receiving the word or hearing the word, and then reacting to it in different ways or holding on to it in different ways, and what results they had. And so, of course, the model that where we want to go, the model person receiving is in the 20th verse, where it says, "These are the ones sown on good ground, those who hear the word, accept it, and bear fruit, some 30-fold, some 60, some 100. But we were talking about the different types and how people, the different aspects of some of these other ways. So let's look tonight. We're going to look back at Mark 4:7 and look at just a certain area. Mark 4:7 is where Jesus is given the illustration. He said, some seed fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it, and it yielded no crop. So given the illustration of the sower putting seed down, and it fell among thorns, or some places it says weeds, and it yielded no crop. In verse 18, then, he describes what's going on. He said, "Now these are the ones sown among thorns. They are the ones who hear the word, and the cares of this world, the deceitfulness of riches, and the desires for other things entering in choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful." So the word comes in, but then verse 19 says, the cares of this world, the deceitfulness of riches, and the desires for other things entering in choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. I want to focus on the first part of that tonight. We'll probably will cover the rest of these things, but I want to talk about some aspects of that first part. It says, the cares of this world, they choke the word. Of course, these other things, the deceitfulness of riches and desires for other things. But I want to focus on the first part, the cares of this world. In the Amplified, Verse 19 says, "But the worries and cares of the world, the distractions of this age with its worldly pleasures, and the deceitfulness and false security of glamour, of wealth and fame, and the passionate desire for other things, creep in and choke out the word, and it becomes unfruitful." So the worries and cares and distractions, it says, they choke out the word. In the Amplified Classic, it says, "Then the cares and anxieties of the world and distractions of this age." The cares and anxieties of this world. Anybody notice that there are cares and anxieties, troubles that try to come on you in this world? Jesus is talking about those. You know, some people think God just, He's off floating somewhere and just doesn't understand real life. No, He absolutely understands, quote unquote, real life far more than we have a clue about. I mean, we just understand this much. He understands infinitely. He understands everything that's going on in this world. And this world is fallen. This world is under the control of Satan. Now, the Christian isn't, but the world in general is. And most people in the world follow along with the world and follow along with the world system. So there are, in this world, pressures and anxieties and cares that try to come on. Put up verse 19 if you can again. The beginning, read the beginning and then we'll skip to the end of it so we can just cut out those other parts we're not covering tonight. It says, "Then the cares and anxieties of the world and the distractions of this age," and he mentions some other things. If you skip to the end, it says, "These creep in and choke and suffocate the word, and it becomes fruitless." In the Ampli. You go back to the Amplified Classic, what we were just on. In the Amplified Classic, the one you were just on. The end of it there you go. It says the desire for other things, they creep in and choke and suffocate the word, and it becomes unfruitless, or it becomes fruitless. It said the cares and anxieties and distractions of the age, they choke and suffocate the word. Can the word be suffocated? The word of the living God, can it be choked? Well, is Jesus right? Of course he's right. In the CEB, verse 19 in the CEB, it says, "The worries of this life." The worries of this life, the false appeal of wealth, the desire for more things, break in and choke the word, and it bears no fruit. So we can see the worries of this life, the cares of this life, the anxieties of this life are one of the things that tries to suffocate the word in our lives. Let's look at the Message. I like the way this brings it out in the Message version. Verse 19 says, "The seed cast in the weeds," or they was calling it the thorns, represents the ones who hear the kingdom news but are overwhelmed with worries about all the things they have to do and all the things they want to get. The stress strangles what they heard and nothing comes of it. We're going to read that one again. The seed cast in the weeds represents the ones who hear the kingdom news but are overwhelmed with worries. You see the picture? Overwhelmed with worries about all the things they have to do. And don't raise your hand, but have you ever felt like that? I think we've all felt like that. We didn't have to yield to it, but you at least felt it coming on. All the things you have to do, all the stuff that's going on, pressing. It says they were overwhelmed with worries about all the things they have to do, all the things they want to get. You can say all the things you want to get to. The stress strangles what they heard, and nothing comes to it. Stress from things that won't matter, stress in the things of this world and the cares and the pressures and the anxiety, just the stuff of life, tries to come in and press on you so that you let go of the Word. And what Jesus said is that will choke the Word. The Word of the living God can be choked in our lives by just being overwhelmed and worried and having care about life. Just life. And there's a real pressure there. The cares of this life, the cares of the world. Let's look at Luke 21:34. Luke 21:34 says, "But take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and cares of this life, and that day come on you unexpected." Talking about the coming of the Lord Jesus, but what I want to focus on is saying, take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and cares of this life. Can your heart be weighed down just because you're caring and taking worry about this life? Yes. In the Amplified Classic, it says, "But take heed to yourselves and be on guard, lest your hearts be overburdened and depressed or weighed down with the giddiness and headache and nausea of self-indulgence, drunkenness," this part I want to emphasize, "and worldly worries and cares pertaining to the busyness of this life." Don't let your hearts be overburdened and depressed and weighed down by the worldly worries and cares pertaining to the busyness of this life. Notice it says, of this life. This life in this world brings with it temptation to get overburdened, to get depressed, to get worried about all the busyness that's going on. Now, if you've lived any time at all, you can relate. There's stuff to do, stuff to take care of things happen in life, and the Word is telling us, and Jesus is saying here, if we're not careful, it can start to overburden us, get us depressed, get us weighed down. The stuff going on in, notice it said, this life. This life is not all there is. This life is going to be over in not too long. And when I say not too long, if you lived another 100 years, that's not very long. As you and I live longer and longer, we should come to the understanding that this life is very short. Stuff comes, stuff goes. But there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of things going on. And it's tempting to let the things that just press in and the pressures and the worries that try to press in and the stuff you have to do start to push on you so we lose sight of what is really going on and what is truly important. And that's how you can become overburdened. That's how you can become weighed down, depressed, because we're looking at all the stuff and what I got to do today and what I got to do tomorrow and next week, and I got this assignment, or I got this job, and I got, this person pulling on me or whatever. And you start looking at that, and it can become like, how am I going to get it all? done? How am I going to get to all these things? Let's look at 2 Corinthians 4, verse 16. 2 Corinthians 4, verse 16. And we're talking about, Jesus said, the word comes, but it can get choked out. And this is one of the things, is the worries and cares of this world can choke it. Verse 16 says, therefore we do not lose heart, even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory, while we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal. The things that are seen are temporary, but the things that aren't seen are eternal. When I was looking at this, the word transient, came to me just in relation to this. Look at, the RSV version, several versions use that word in this verse. 2 Corinthians 4, verse 18 says, because we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. What does transient mean? It means passing especially quickly into and out of existence. That's transient. Passing, and then another definition is passing through or by a place with only a brief stay. That describes our stay on the earth. It's transient. But how much more, if our stay on the earth is transient, how much more our daily tasks, the stuff that's pressing. The last part of that verse says, the things that are seen are transient. That means they pass in and out quickly. But there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of stuff coming in and out, around, pressures. And with all the noise and with all the motion, all the pressure, it's tempting to take your eyes off of what is important and let the things that are the daily things, the weekly things, the stuff that just comes up, start to choke what is going to matter for the long term. And sometimes with all that stuff, and Jesus said this is something we have to be aware of. We have to know that we're in this life and the busyness of this world will try to choke God's Word, which is His work in your life. It will try to happen. And it'll try to get your eyes off what is truly important, that this life is temporary, that this life is transient, but the things of God and the spiritual things are eternal. The pressure will try to get you to work. You're just living by the transient. You're getting pushed by things that are here today and gone tomorrow. You know as well as I do, there's things, if I were to ask you, what was really pressing on you in your daily life 5 weeks ago, there may be a big thing that's been there for a while and you could answer me, but if there were things that were coming and going in your life, even your job or your school or your relationships, you would probably have a hard time answering the question when you get down to a certain level. You don't remember, I don't remember. But at the time, it feels like, got to get this done. If you have checklists, you're just checking. And then what do you do with the list? Honestly, I have them all computerized, so I have them all. I can look back and know what I did any given week. I don't really ever look, but sometimes it comes in handy. I have it in Excel spreadsheets, and my kids know, and my wife knows, and a lot of engineers know, Excel is your friend. It's very versatile. I'm not an accountant, but hey, you can do a lot of stuff in Excel. And when I have to solve a problem, sometimes I'll just, hey, we're going to make a spreadsheet. That's how we're going to do this. We're going to keep track. So my to-do list it's got a lot of stuff and a lot of sections, and it's color-coded and all that. And then I put up what I got done, all the different areas in the week. And so I can go back, and then when I take that and I just copy it, to a different place. I just save it as a new one, and then I just keep chugging. So I can go back and look, what was I doing the week of February 2nd? What did I get done? Anyway, but I don't look at it most of the time unless it was like, what was going on or what did I have to do? Most of the time I never look at it again. Well, I can't remember. Sometimes I'll look at Shelly and go, what did we get done? And she'll go look at your list. You need to be, looking at what the to-do list or what you got done, because sometimes you feel like you got nothing done and you see all these little items there. But the point is, barring having it on a computer, we don't usually remember. We're like, man, all that stuff it was pressing. You don't even remember what it was. And if we're moved by that stuff, let alone if we start getting weighed down and depressed by that stuff, the stuff that you won't remember. Now, there's big, heavy-duty stuff that happens. And there's everything in between. But the point is we cannot let the stuff that's transient start dictating what we do, because in the worst case, it actually chokes the Word in our life and we don't bear any fruit. In the worst case, it becomes so overwhelming and so much in our face that we take our eyes off, take your eyes off Jesus, because if the Word's being choked, you're not looking at the Word anymore. You're not looking at God. You're looking at the stuff. And the stuff gets to you so much that the Word doesn't bear anything in your life anymore. And in the very worst case, people are totally consumed by what is, and God's on the side. And with all the noise and all the pressure and all the anxiety, sometimes it helps right in the middle of when you feel like it's a pressure cooker, as much, everything's going on, is to say, what in my present circumstances am I going to remember 10, 20, 30 years from now, or at the end of my life? What matters that's going on right now? In other words, when you just let everything fade, which things are actually going to have an impact and affect what I'll be thinking about when I'm about to leave this earth? And that can bring real clarity. You got all this stuff going on, and all of a sudden it just fades and said, actually, this is actually important. If I don't keep this going, I'm not going to like it in 10 years. If I don't do this, I'm going to look back and say, ooh, I wish I would have. And if you just sometimes it makes, decisions seem real hard until you look and go, what am I going to wish I would have done if I were to look back at my life and what I'm dealing with right now? Which path would I take, or what I wish I would have taken at the end of my life? And then sometimes it's just like, know what to do. Because all the transient pressure and busyness, when you put it in the light of decades or a lifetime, you say, actually, most of this doesn't matter. I would not want to take this path based on this pressure, because this is truly important. The Word is important. God's ways are important. This world is passing away. 1 John 2:16. It says, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world, and the world is passing away. The world ain't going to be here forever like it is. It's going to be burned up. This thing is not going to go on forever. People are, like, well, we got to save everything. You're not going to be able to save the planet. It does not mean we should try to destroy it as fast as we can. but you're not going to be able to save it. It's not going to happen. It will be burned up. The Bible says it is. It's not going to go forever. It's corrupted by sin. Verse 17 says, the world is passing away and the lust of it, but he who does the will of God abides forever. See, what we see is not going to abide forever, but doing the will of God, that will abide forever. Well, that means that's important. See, that the will of God is keeping our eyes on His Word, what He said, His presence, and we keep our eyes on that regardless of what all this stuff's going on in here, the noise. We're focused on that because we know the world, it's passing away. The world is not going to be around forever. In the NLT, it says the world is fading away. The world is fading away. I like that because you can just see it. All this noise, all the glory of the world's splendor, what people hold up as important. If you look closely, it's fading. It's dimming. You know what's not dimming at all? Are the things of God, the Lordship of the Lord Jesus Christ, what we do for Him. It is completely solid, strong, and getting brighter. But the world and its things are fading away. Let's look at Luke 10, verse 38. You see an account of this in real time. Luke 10:38, it says, now it happened as they went that he entered a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she approached Jesus, and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore, tell her to help me. Verse 41, and Jesus answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part which will not be taken away from her. So, Jesus is over at Martha's house. And her sister Mary is listening to Jesus teach. Martha, on the other hand, is taking care of all the food, taking care of all the stuff to get things ready. Now, that stuff has to be done. In general, we have things we need to do. We don't just float, just like we're just floating spiritually, and we don't ever have to do anything in this earth. That's not the way life is. We have responsibilities. We have stuff that we need to do. But in this case, Martha is distracted with much serving. She was so distracted, she was saying, I have to do these things. I have to get all this stuff done. She is obviously overwhelmed. She is frustrated. She is stressed. She's pressured. She's feeling like, I got to do all this stuff, and what? I'm going to do it all alone? So much so that she goes to Jesus and says to him, interrupts what Jesus is saying, interrupts him, and says, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore, tell her to help me. So she is upset, and she's assuming that Mary is doing the wrong thing, that Mary should be helping her do this stuff, when Mary is sitting at the feet of Almighty God teaching at this point. Which thing is going to be remembered 2,000 years later? They're both here. Which thing is most important? Listening to Jesus when He's on the earth, or cooking a meal? It becomes really, really clear. That's not to discount the importance of cooking a meal. But cooking a meal compared to listening to the Son of God when He's on the earth, there's no comparison. And if Jesus said, wait a minute, verse 41, He said, Jesus answered and said, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things. But one thing is needed. One thing is needed right now. What is the important thing we're supposed to do right now? A lot of stuff we could do, a lot of pressure, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stuff going on, but He says one thing is needed. Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her. He's saying, the thing you need to be doing right now is what Mary's doing. Mary is choosing to look at the important thing. You're looking at the thing that's going to change by evening. And she's assuming that she's supposed to just do that stuff. Well, it's not affecting her well. She's not joyful. She's taken her eyes. I mean, the living Word is right there in her room, and she's looking at the kitchen. And we can't throw any stones because in our life, we have the Spirit of God living inside of us now in this age. We have the Holy Written Word, yet it is so tempting to let all the stuff that's going on, and there are pressures in life. There's pressures at work. There can be pressures with relationships. There can be pressures, physically in this world. There's so much stuff. We're not making light of any of that, but there's stuff that puts pressure to take our eyes off the fact that Jesus is Lord, that His Word is true, that the Spirit of God actually indwells in us. And ultimately, to let go of the Word, because we have to attend to stuff. And to say, well, I'm busy. I'm too busy right now. When it calms down, then I'll attend back to the things of God. Could be, spending time with God, keeping ourselves built up spiritually, praying. I'm too busy. Busy with what? What are we making a choice between at that point? We're making a choice between the stuff that's transient and that's happening now versus things that are eternal, things that are associated with the plan and the purpose of God. And we lay down that and say, well, I'll get to it later. And it's subtle because we're talking about responsibilities. We could be talking about responsibilities that are in a place God has led us to be. Well, surely I got to do that. Of course, we have to take care of responsibilities, but not at the expense of letting the Word go, because we know what the end of that is. If we let the Word go and let the cares and the responsibilities and worries of life choke out the Word, we know we're going to be unfruitful. It's not going to end well. We already know that. Jesus just told us this is where this is going. So when we're in the middle of it, the temptation is, got too much stuff. This is starting to press on me. This is pushing on me and could make me, when we find ourselves getting agitated, it's and stressed and getting out of peace with other people, it's a sure sign we're off. Did I lose somebody there? No, it's their problem. No, if we get out of peace, if we're so overburdened, then we've let something go. We're not looking at Him. We're in danger of this stuff overburdening my heart, overwhelming me to where I'm making my decisions based on this stuff and this pressure versus what is God saying, what His Word hasn't changed, His faithfulness hasn't changed, He is on the throne, and I'm looking at Him, and I'm going to overcome this stuff. We start letting the stuff start overcoming us. And it's tempting to think, oh, if I just had more time, then I'd spend more time in the Word or praying. It'd be so much easier if I weren't busy. But the fact is, we decide what we're going to look at any given time and what we let dictate our time in our lives. Just like Mary had a choice. Or Martha had a choice and Mary had a choice. And Jesus said, Mary chose the right thing. You're choosing the wrong thing. Martha. And, it's easy to throw stones at Martha, just big, fat, easy target because she's in the Word like, oh, you did it wrong. No, we got to look at ourselves. It's there for an illustration. She just got caught up in the wrong thing. That's it. Have we ever, don't raise your hand, have we ever got caught up in the wrong thing? Did we ever start looking at something? Have you ever looked at something and it pushed you and stressed you and then it evaporated in a day? It was a deadline or something and you were getting stressed about it or some problem and all of a sudden it's gone and you wasted a bunch of effort, bunch of time, bunch of stress on nothing? Don't raise your hand, but just think, has that ever happened to you? Has that ever happened? Yeah, it's probably happened to all of us. What was important at that? What did we let ourselves start being moved from? And what are we getting pressed on during those times? I remember when we were going to Rhema, when I was going to Rhema. Shelly graduated in 1995, and before I met her, and then I looked at going to Rhema. When I got out of college, I had started a full-time job, and I went down to the college weekend, but I was like, no, I'm serving in my local church, and I didn't have a witness to go. I thought, I had it in my heart already. I could see myself going toward ministry, but I just got my engineering degree, and I'm working the job, and I'm serving the local church, and I believed I was right where I needed to be. So I just kept on trucking. And, got married to Shelly in 1999, and I went to Rhema then, felt it was time, and we moved the family down there in 2003. So I went in 2003 to 2006 and went, graduated from the 2-year program, the 2nd-year pastor's program, and then they had a 3rd-year pastor's program, and I graduated from that too. But during that time, I'm going to school, I'm working, I'm married, I have 2 young children, at that time. When we moved to Rhema, Brianna was almost 2, because we moved in June. Right at the end of June, we left. And so Brianna turned 2 in August. Andrew was born in August. So you can see when we left to come out here, Andrew was 2, going to turn 3, and Brianna was 4, going to turn 5. So we had 2 young children. We attended 3 church services a week. Rhema would have Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I had to study for school, so I went to school, but then I had to keep everything going. And we were serving in multiple areas in the church. And all that stuff was going on during that time, and there was a lot of stuff. And I remember walking with Shelly one day through our neighborhood. So we were grabbing a short walk. We lived in the neighborhood, and we tried to fit in a walk, and just talking to her. And there was so many things going on. And just the impression of what we were supposed to be doing during that time. We had all this stuff going on, and a lot of it's just, I'm going to Rhema, but I also got to take care of all the natural stuff of life. And the impression was to stay built up spiritually, stay up with all the different parts that are important, and just maintain the critical parts and do the rest to the best of your ability. But don't start getting lopsided to where you're like, no, got to take care of stuff, too busy, got to deal stuff, and start letting the vital parts drop. It was just an impression, just do life, but keep strong in the areas. Because I had heard before I ever went to Rhema, and people think, well, I'll go to Bible school and it'll solve all my problems, and I'll get so much of the Word, and then I'll just go out and dominate everything. People get divorced when they go to Bible school. People ended up falling away from God when they go to Bible school. People do all kinds. The Bible school doesn't change you, doesn't change your life. Whatever you brought to Bible school, you have, and the Word can change you. But the answer to getting things changed in your life is not Bible school. It's letting the Word it's agreeing with the Word and putting it into practice. And I had heard before I ever went, you can go to Bible school and let your spiritual walk start to deteriorate, but it's not so obvious because you're getting pumped full of the Word for 3 hours a day. But you're not doing personal devotions. You're not spending any time with God. People go to Rhema or go to Bible school and don't go to church. Believe it or not, they're going to 3 hours of Bible school, but they don't go to church or they go to one church. So you're getting deteriorated as you go. But it seems like, well, I'm hearing the Word every day, so I'm okay. Well, the busyness, whether you're at Bible school, whether you're just at work, whatever, it can try to take away the foundation to where you are not guarding the Word, not focusing on the right things, not taking care of what is truly important. You have to maintain your spiritual life and guard the Word regardless of what station of life you're in, regardless of what profession you're in, regardless if you're a student, if you're retired, if you're a stay-at-home mom, whether you own your own business, where you work for somebody. The one common thing is we have to maintain a vital relationship with God and guard the Word in our life, or we will begin to be taken up with all the natural stuff. So we were pressed when we were there, and it got, by the end, we had gotten involved in certain things in the church, and over time, they grew. It's like you started out having this responsibility, but certain things, I'm not talking about just piled on, just certain things, you kind of just kept, where you're faithful and whatever, and by the time we were in that last semester, before we graduated, there was a lot of stuff going on, and we were at the point where, like, man, we're too busy now. We know that. We see that. But we're almost done. We're not going to just get out of those things now, but we're going to learn from that. And so we finished out. We pushed through the end of school. We packed up the house, and we moved to Andover. And when we got out here, man, I was tired on some things. I remember one day just, oh my gosh, just sleeping, and it was just, I was tired, and we made some adjustments. Not that we were going, there was a lot going on, but we just realized there are certain things we want to adjust and make sure there is time. I was doing the best of my ability as I was going through Rhema and maintaining, but I also saw you don't want to get to the place where you are that too busy. And I don't ever want to get to that place. You don't want to be there because those things can start pushing on you too much. So we put things in place and adjusted. Not that, we walked that out perfectly, but we made some adjustment, made some changes, and said we're not going to be that busy again. And so we all have to look in our lives and at the daily things and the weekly things and the monthly things, the things that would press on us. And take our eyes from the weeds, the stuff that's happening all the time, those pressures, and look up past it and say, Lord, what is important for your plan, your purpose, my family, what you've called me to do? What is important? What do I need to focus on so that I maintain, be strong, don't let those things pressure, overburden, distress me, depress me, weigh me down to get me so that I'm letting go of the Word. You make the decision to press into Him. Make the decision to put His things first. Make the decision to read the Bible, to pray, to be at church, to put His things to where I'm not going to let the Word get choked out. I'm going to make sure that I'm looking to you so that I can stay focused on what you're calling me to do, so that I can be strong, so that I can overcome, so that I can finish strong, so that when the time passes, when I get further in life and I look back, and I can't remember all the noise, I can look and say, yeah, but I maintained what you told me to do. I maintained the important things, and we don't look back and go, I wish I didn't succumb to some kind of thing that was transient, that changed. God is faithful to help us. God is faithful to bring us up and to sustain us. And what we have to do is make sure we're looking to Him. Looking to Him. In the midst of the busyness, do we still look to Him? Don't take our eyes off Him. Even when it starts to seem like, no, I can't fit that in right now. We know, if I don't fit it in now, it's a place that I can start getting weaker. And as I start getting weaker, there's a time where maybe I just don't want to fit it in. And when I don't want to fit it in, now there starts taking over and pushing into my heart to where I'm going in a different direction. And then I'm not able to press on. I'm not able to press through. And to guard and to gird ourselves up and to look to Him and say, Lord, you strengthen me. You help me. And I'll follow after you. Amen.